Day 3 of the blackout, and your neighbor is sipping on his own urine like it's some artisanal mountain brew. Says he read online it recycles hydration. By day 5, he's curled up in a puddle of kidney failure, and you're digging a hole next to his barbecue pit. Welcome to the Great Collapse, where survival myths don't just get you mocked, they get you buried. Prepping based on TikTok advice is like building a parachute out of duct tape and confidence. It looks clever right up until gravity wins. So let's get one thing straight. Drinking urine? That's not hydration. That's reverse plumbing for your bloodstream. Urine is the chemical dumpster of your body, concentrated salts, urea, creatinine, all the stuff your kidneys threw out with a disgusted sigh. When you drink it, you're not recycling. You're repoisoning yourself with your own filtered waste. Your kidneys, overworked and underpaid, now have to double filter toxins they already evicted. That's like firing someone and making them come back to finish the report. Result? Sodium overload, cellular dehydration, renal collapse. Basically, you just sent your body into system shutdown using the same fluid you peed out while panicking. And no, Bear Grylls isn't a valid source. He had a camera crew, a hotel room, and a medic on standby. You have 3 cans of beans, a solar charger, and anxiety. If you're thirsty, find a stream. Boil it, filter it. Hell, strain it through your shirt if you have to. Just don't chug your own liquid regrets and call it innovation. Now jump forward to timeline 88D, where people thought gasoline was nature's lighter fluid. They watched one too many action movies and figured pouring unleaded on a cold fire pit would speed things up. What they actually did was create a vapor cloud bomb that detonated faster than their survival instincts. Gasoline doesn't burn like wood. It explodes. It vaporizes at room temperature, spreads invisibly, and one spark turns your rustic campfire into a backyard napalm test. Burns in under 2 seconds. Skin gone before you can say, I saw this in Fast and Furious. You want fire? Then earn it. Tinder, structure, airflow, birch bark, char cloth, cotton balls soaked in petroleum jelly. Yes, it's slower. So is not dying. Fire is chemistry, not chaos. Control the ratio of heat, fuel, and oxygen, or enjoy your 3rd-degree lecture on the physics of stupidity. And then we've got the moss myth. Ah, yes. The classic Boy Scout fairy tale that moss always grows on the north side of trees. Sure, in a lab, under perfect lighting, in a forest curated by elves maybe. Out here, moss grows wherever it damn well pleases shaded valleys, windbreaks, wet rocks, your boots if you sit long enough. It chases moisture, not magnetism. If you're using moss for navigation, congratulations, you're now officially lost with style. Instead, look up. Polaris, the North Star, doesn't move. Stars rotate around it. That's direction you can trust. Learn the sky or carry a compass. If you're using botany to decide which way to walk, you're already halfway to dehydration roulette. Mother Nature isn't your tour guide. She's your exam proctor, and she doesn't grade on a curve. Now, let's talk animals. Specifically, the people who watched a squirrel eat a mushroom and thought, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. Newsflash, squirrels aren't human. They also eat their own weight in garbage and don't get liver failure. You do. Animals have radically different metabolisms, enzymes, gut flora basically. A completely different digestive OS. A deer can munch poisonous mushrooms all day. You eat one death cap and your liver starts necrotizing before your GPS signal dies. Thinking you can mimic wildlife diets is like copying someone else's medication prescription because they looked healthy. Learn your plants. Use field guides. Know which berries are snacks and which ones are slow-acting nerve agents. If you're desperate, there's the universal edibility test. Touch a bit to your skin, wait, then your lips, then your tongue, then chew, wait. Hours of testing for one leaf. Why? Because biology is patient, but not forgiving. And your stomach isn't built for squirrel cuisine. Still not feeling stupid enough? Let's talk snake bites. In timeline 73F, they believed sucking venom out of a bite wound worked. You know, the cowboy method / the wound, suck the poison, spit dramatically into the dirt, except that's Hollywood horseshit. By the time you kneel down to play snake surgeon, the venom is already circulating. Your suction does nothing except turn the wound into a bacterial buffet and possibly infect your mouth too. Nice work. Now you've got necrosis and gingivitis. Here's what actually works. Stay calm, keep the bite below heart level. Remove anything that'll restrict swelling, and wait for medical help. Mark the swelling with a pen if you're lucky enough to have one. And stop watching reruns of cowboy flicks for survival advice. Real first aid is boring, precise, and often requires not doing the most dramatic thing you can think of. And while we're shattering survival fantasies, let's check out rabbit starvation, the tragic irony of eating yourself to death with food. In Timeline 44H, they thought lean meat would keep them alive forever. Meat is meat, right? Except when it's rabbit. Because rabbit has almost no fat. It fills your stomach but starves your metabolism. Your liver can only process so much protein before it floods your body with ammonia. You get diarrhea, headaches, fatigue, and then die with a full belly and empty calorie reserves. Old frontiersmen knew it. They saw people eat nothing but rabbit and waste away like bad ghosts. You need fat for calories, vitamins, hormones, cell repair, mood regulation, the works. You can eat rabbits, but pair them with nuts, seeds, fish, or literally anything that won't make your body cannibalize itself for nutrients. This isn't a low-carb cleanse. It's survival. You're not on a diet. You're on a death clock with a menu. You still with me? Good. Because next up are the cave people. Not Neanderthals, your friends who think a cave is nature's 5-star hotel. It's dry. It's cool. Yeah, and it's also home to rabid bats, sleeping bears, and air quality so bad it turns your lungs into damp rags. Caves conduct heat away from your body like they're trying to kill you. Wet stone pulls warmth 30 times faster than air. You think you're escaping exposure, but unless you build an insulated nest like a paranoid beaver, you're freezing to death. Ventilation? Nope. Enjoy your carbon dioxide coma. And let's not forget the other cave tenants, spiders, snakes, and that weird smell in the corner that might be a rotting carcass. Shelter is windbreak, moisture barrier, heat retention, lean toes, debris huts, space blankets, all superior to betting your life on a hole in the rock that might already be rented by something with claws. Let's go to Timeline 56M, where someone thought playing dead was a universal solution for bear attacks. Like every bear, regardless of species, backstory, or mood, would just shrug and say, well, I guess he's already gone, and politely walk away. This is not Disney. Bears don't follow scripts. Black bears, in particular, treat stillness like a dinner invitation. Lay down, and you might as well baste yourself in butter. They'll start eating while you're still blinking. Grizzlies? Sometimes, if you curl into a ball and pray, they might lose interest. Brown bears? It depends. Are they mad, surprised, hungry, or just having a midlife crisis? You don't play dead. You don't scream. You don't try to negotiate. You know the bear. That's your job. You carry bear spray. You read the situation. Defensive? Submit. Predatory? Fight like your bones are made of dynamite. Playing dead only works in specific contexts, and guessing wrong means you'll find out what your femur looks like from the outside. Bear attacks are not improv theater. You don't get to try out different roles. You get one chance, and the bear's not interested in callbacks. Now let's dive into Timeline 31P, home of the Follow the River to Civilization cult. It sounds smart, doesn't it? Water equals people, right? Except rivers don't care about your logic. They care about gravity. Rivers lead to cliffs, swamps, and rapids. They drag you through thick brush, unstable terrain, and predator territory. Every bend is a new opportunity to twist an ankle or get stalked by something that sees you as a walking protein bar. Meanwhile, you're burning calories like a treadmill on fire. Getting nowhere, because water doesn't flow toward rescue, it flows downhill. Sometimes that's to a city. Sometimes it's to a canyon, a waterfall, or a remote stretch of nowhere that'll be your final postcard. Want to navigate? Use elevation. Find high ground. Use the sun. Know your direction. Water is for hydration, not wayfinding. Following it blindly is how you go from clever survivor to floaty corpse. And now we get to the pièce de résistance of absurd survival myths. Starting fires with ice. Timeline 67Q, where people tried to outsmart physics with an icicle and a dream. Sure, technically, if you're MacGyver and have hands made of heat-resistant angel feathers, you can carve a clear ice lens, focus sunlight, and ignite dry tinder. You can also technically wrestle an alligator and win. Doesn't mean you should try it in a crisis. Most ice isn't clear enough. It's full of air bubbles, clouded by impurities, and melting in your hands before you even finish shaping it. The sun won't cooperate. Your hands will go numb, your Tinder's damp. You've now wasted an hour, dropped your core temperature, and have zero fire to show for it. You want fire? Carry a lighter, 2 lighters, a ferro rod, matches dipped in wax, redundant systems. Fire is non-negotiable. Making it a science fair project while you're hypothermic is natural selection with extra steps. Let's step back for a second. Why do these myths persist? Why are people drinking urine, starting gas fires, and playing possum for apex predators? Because the human brain wasn't built for accuracy. It was built for storytelling. It looks for patterns. It craves simplicity. It prefers memorable nonsense over hard-to-digest truth. You remember the tale about the guy who followed Moss to safety, not the field manual explaining magnetic declination. Stories feel true, so we trust them, even when they kill us. Add stress, and the brain gets even dumber. Cortisol floods the system, and boom, your ability to think critically tanks. You default to the last thing you heard that sounded confident. That's why the loudest guy in the survival group, the one with the least experience but the most YouTube subscriptions, suddenly becomes the leader. Not because he's right, but because panic loves certainty. Even fake certainty. It's the Dunning-Kruger apocalypse. The less you know, the more you believe you're prepared. The more prepared you are, the more cautious and quiet you become. And guess who survives? Not the guy yelling about making torches out of gasoline-soaked socks. It's the one who practiced making fire in the rain with wet wood, the one who built a shelter before the storm hit, the one who packed rations instead of trusting in edible weeds and Instagram foraging tips. Let's sprinkle in some modern satire, shall we? Imagine a TikToker in a disaster zone. The grid collapses, and they're live streaming from a phone running on 3% battery. Hey fam, day 1 without power? I'm trying this new survival hack I saw on a skincare channel. I'm purifying water with crystals and my third eye. Smash that like button before my pancreas shuts down. 2 days later, someone finds their selfie stick lodged in a tree and a note that just says number hydration vibes. Modern society trained people to chase convenience, not competence. Push a button, get food. Swipe right, find love. Ask Alexa, get directions. When that collapses, people look for shortcuts because their muscle memory is tied to comfort, not consequence. They don't want methods, they want life hacks. Unfortunately, the apocalypse isn't a BuzzFeed listicle. It doesn't care about your hustle. It cares about your preparation. This is where preparation wins. Not the paranoid, tinfoil hat, live in a bunker kind. The smart, data-driven, test everything kind. The people who understand that surviving isn't about being lucky or brave, it's about being right. It's about verifying facts before the world demands proof in blood. Think about the rule of threes. 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter in extreme conditions, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. And those are averages. You're not average. You're cold, panicking, and haven't slept in 36 hours. That 3 hours of exposure might be 30 minutes if you're soaked and shivering. That 3 days without water, 1 day in the desert if you're sweating like a boiled ham. The rules bend. Biology does not. Every myth you cling to is a liability. Every fact you internalize is a survival edge. Carry real gear. Test your tools. Learn what fire actually requires. Memorize edible plants, not just the pretty Instagram ones. Practice building shelter in your backyard, in the rain, in the wind. Don't wait until the sky falls to discover your gear doesn't work, or that fire from ice isn't a skill. It's a hallucination, because when it does fall, and it will, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, all those comforting lies you told yourself will be the weights that drag you under. And while you're busy shouting moss grows north or rabbit is lean protein, bro, someone else, quieter, better prepared, less impressed by survival, TikTok will be walking past your bones, sipping filtered stream water, and setting up camp. Welcome to Timeline 19J, where the post-apocalyptic logic goes. Find a cave, live like a goblin, survive like a legend. Because nothing says smart shelter like crawling into the moist, pitch-black mouth of a mountain filled with rabies, rot, and regret. Caves look safe from the outside, but so does a Vegas marriage. Doesn't mean you should move in without knowing the tenants. Here's what caves actually are: predator dens, hypothermia factories, and biohazard incubators. Bats hang from the ceilings, dripping disease. Bears nap in the corners like giant fur-covered landmines. In the air, it stagnates. CO2 builds up overnight. You lie down thinking you're safe, and wake up not at all. Plus, rock is a world-class conductor of cold. It pulls heat from your body faster than an ice bath, and unless you've got insulation thicker than your ego, you'll freeze long before morning. But it's shelter. Sure. And so is a sewer grate. Survival is about control. Controlled airflow. Controlled temperature. Controlled moisture. Caves give you none of that. You want protection from wind and rain? Build a lean-to. Stack debris. Use a mylar blanket. You want to play house with wild animals and fungal spores? Be my guest. Just know that every time someone chose a cave, odds were they either left limping or didn't leave at all. Now, Timeline 29C brings us the classic line of reasoning. If animals can eat it, so can I. Which is adorable. In the way a toddler shoving marbles into their nose is adorable right up until the emergency room. Humans are not squirrels. You do not share a digestive system with birds, deer, or raccoons. Although, let's be honest, some people try. Animals have unique enzymes, gut flora, and toxin tolerances we don't. A mushroom that gives a rabbit happy dreams will melt your liver like it's made of wax. Death cap mushrooms kill with less than 1/10 of a milligram of toxin per kilogram of body weight. You could lick one and start a countdown. Your body will do its best, vomiting, diarrhea, maybe even a dramatic faint. But once your liver taps out, the rest follows. All because you saw a chipmunk munching and thought, that's dinner. Here's a better approach. Learn the plants. Carry a guide. Tattoo the difference between red berries that nourish and red berries that nuke your pancreas. And if you're truly desperate, use the universal edibility test, that long, tedious, hours-long process where you slowly test one bite like it's a diplomatic negotiation with death. Because it is. Now over in Timeline 51G, they were still drinking urine. And honestly, it bears repeating because apparently humans have a fetish for bad hydration ideas. Urine isn't magic. It's body trash. Concentrated, salty, toxic. Drinking it is like washing dishes with the water from your toilet. Yes, it's technically water. No, you're not smart for thinking it's survival savvy. You're giving your kidneys an overtime shift in the middle of a disaster. That's not ingenuity. That's panic wearing a lab coat. Why do people default to myths when everything's falling apart? Because when fear spikes, logic flatlines. You want action now. Not strategy, not calculation movement. It's the same instinct that makes someone think gasoline is a great fire starter because it goes whoosh. But survival isn't about action. It's about the right action. Doing the wrong thing with confidence still gets you killed. Just faster and with more fire. Let's go back to fire. Because let's face it, nothing attracts idiots like open flame. Remember Timeline 88D? Gasoline for campfires. Just pour and light. It's the survival equivalent of spinning a loaded revolver and yelling, "This'll work!" Gasoline doesn't burn gently. It explodes. It vaporizes, creates an invisible death cloud, and ignites at the worst possible moment. If you're close, congratulations, you've just turned your face into a skin graft project. Want a fire that won't kill you? Use dry tinder. Build it right. Feed it oxygen, not explosives. Chemistry, 101. Not TikTok, 101. People trust movies over manuals. That's the real curse. Survival cinema tells you can suck out venom, punch wolves, and light fires with broken dreams and determination. Reality disagrees. Sucking venom does nothing. The toxins are in your bloodstream, not sitting politely near the surface waiting to be vacuumed. All you're doing is adding bacteria and wasting time. Stay still. Stay calm. Let the professionals inject you with antivenom. Until then, you are not the hero of a Western. You are a mobile meat sack praying for stability. And speaking of stability, let's return to the myth of navigating by moss. This idea refuses to die. Somewhere, someone always insists moss grows north. Except it doesn't. It grows where it's damp, which is everywhere in certain forests and nowhere in deserts. You know what grows predictably? Stars. Polaris doesn't move. Learn to find it. Learn constellations. Learn the way the sun travels. If you're trusting plants over physics, you're not lost, you're doomed. While we're here, let's pour one out for Timeline 62A, where moss believers walked in circles until they dropped. You know what would have helped? A compass, or a basic grasp of celestial mechanics. But no, someone told them trust nature, and they followed that advice until nature spit them out. Let's get philosophical for a moment. The apocalypse isn't a great equalizer, it's a final exam. And the people who studied, they're not just surviving, they're thriving. They know hydration, chemistry, they understand thermal conduction, they practiced fire starting with frozen fingers. They know when to move, when to stop, when to build, and when to wait. They didn't get their education from pop culture. They got it from testing, failure, and science. Meanwhile, someone else is over there boiling roadkill because squirrels eat it, building a fire with gasoline, sucking venom, and passing out in a cave full of bat guano and mold. They will not pass this test. They will become a story, a cautionary one. Psychologically, this all makes sense. Our brains want comfort. We look for easy patterns. We hear rabbits have protein and assume we can survive on them. We hear follow the river and assume it leads to towns. We hear play dead and assume the bear will follow the script. That's not logic. That's emotional damage in a trench coat pretending to be strategy. Survival isn't about what sounds good. It's about what works. And if that sounds like too much work, too much research, too many weekends spent testing gear instead of watching apocalypse shows, well, enjoy your irony sandwich. Because when the lights go out and the grid collapses, it won't be the charming myth believers who make it. It'll be the skeptics, the ones who question everything, the ones who ran drills when everyone else ran errands, the ones who asked, does this work? And waited for proof. Because out here, belief doesn't matter. Biology does. Chemistry does. Thermodynamics does. And the only miracle you'll find is the one you built with your own blistered hands. Timeline 44. H. Rabbit Eaters Anonymous. You'd think finding food means you're in the clear. You're gnawing on fresh meat, stomach full, cheeks a little rosy, until your body quietly starts flipping switches behind the scenes. Diarrhea, fatigue, headache. Next thing you know, you're sprawled on the dirt, dying slower than a Windows 98 reboot. Why? Because rabbit is too lean. It's protein with no fat, and without dietary fat, your liver has a meltdown. Rabbit starvation, a real thing, not a band name. Your organs can only handle so much pure protein before they poison you from the inside. Frontiersmen didn't starve because they ran out of animals. They starved surrounded by meat. Fat isn't optional. It's how your body builds hormones, repairs cells, and absorbs fat-soluble vitamins. You want calories that count, not calories that lie. So unless you find a peanut butter rabbit hybrid, you'd better supplement that wild game with fish, nuts, or seeds if you can find them. Otherwise, your meat-based diet turns into the world's slowest poison. Now, back to those rivers everyone loves to follow. Water equals life, right? Only if you treat it like a utility, not a roadmap. Because following rivers downstream sounds logical right up until you're chest deep in a swamp being eyeballed by a water moccasin. Rivers don't lead to rescue. They lead to wherever gravity wants, which is usually away from the people you're trying to find. Civilizations were built around rivers, sure, but that was centuries ago, back when roads were optional and people were willing to die of dysentery for better farmland. Nowadays, rivers flow through no man's lands, through canyons, dense brush, and erosion zones, where the only things thriving are bacteria and regrets. Also, fun fact, predators love rivers. So while you're navigating, something with sharper teeth and fewer moral boundaries is watching you. You're not special, you're hydrated bait. Stay on high ground, use the terrain, use the sun. Look for signs of civilization, not moving water. Because when you follow the current, you're not finding help, you're being carried away from your exit plan. Oh, and here's a fun side quest from Timeline 67Q again. The ice lens fire starter myth. Carve a lens from ice. Use sunlight to focus the beam. Ignite fire. It works in the same way that assembling a nuclear reactor in your garage works, theoretically. In practice, your ice has bubbles. The sunlight flickers. Your hands go numb before you finish the sculpture, and even if you do manage to polish a perfect lens, your tinder is wet and the sun ducks behind a cloud like it's trolling you personally. You're better off striking two rocks together and praying to ancient fire gods. Or, packing a lighter. Here's the real truth. Fire isn't about being clever. It's about being consistent, redundant, reliable. You don't need to prove your ingenuity to nature. She's not grading you. She's just waiting to see if you freeze to death. And now, let's talk about why myths like these stick. It's not because they're correct. It's because they're easy, quick, catchy, They sound like something a wise forest uncle would mutter before disappearing into the mist. Moss grows north. Rivers lead home. You can eat what birds eat. They're simple stories, wrapped in a blanket of confidence and sprinkled with folklore. But survival isn't about sound bites. It's about systems. And the systems are brutal. Physics doesn't care about your urgency. Chemistry doesn't pity your fear. Biology doesn't pause for second chances. If you misunderstand the rules, you pay in pain. Sometimes blood. Sometimes with the full-blown collapse of your organ systems, while your buddy insists the moss was telling the truth. The problem is cognitive bias. When the world falls apart, your brain clings to whatever sounds familiar, no matter how stupid. That's the availability heuristic at work. You heard it once, so you believe it. Confirmation bias makes it worse. You want it to be true. And Dunning-Kruger? That's when the guy with zero field experience insists he read an article once and proceeds to lead your entire group into a bog because he thinks he remembers how compasses work. Survival doesn't reward boldness. It rewards humility. Testing, verification, skepticism. You don't bet your life on what feels true. You test it in the rain, when your hands shake, when the matches are wet and the wind is laughing. The real survivors don't just memorize the rules, they practice the exceptions. They understand that 3 days without water can shrink to 12 hours in heatstroke conditions. That 3 weeks without food becomes 5 days if you're already weak and moving constantly. Survival isn't a standardized test. It's adaptive, fluid, merciless. Here's the kicker. Knowledge weighs nothing. Gear breaks. Batteries die. But knowing how to build shelter with debris, how to purify water without a filter, how to start fire in the rain that lives in your spine, that's not content. That's capability. And you know what's really heavy? Myths. Not just metaphorically. They slow you down. You pack dumb things like giant knives instead of multi-tools, tarps you never practiced using, gimmick gear that worked on YouTube but fails under pressure. You cling to rituals that have no foundation, like drinking urine or playing dead, because they give you a false sense of control. But control isn't in belief. It's in understanding. The difference between a prepper and a corpse isn't how many cans of beans they stored. It's whether they questioned their own assumptions before the world gave them the final exam. That's what survival really is, self-doubt weaponized. Not paranoia practice. The ones who make it? They're the ones who ran fire drills in their backyard when their neighbors thought they were crazy, who tested their gear, identified the weak points, replaced what didn't work, who knew that survival isn't about looking tough, it's about being relentless in your pursuit of what actually works. Because when the grid fails, and it will, you're not going to rise to the occasion. You're going to fall to your level of preparation. So ask yourself, are you built on reality or running on folklore? This is the final lesson, not the kind you get from a motivational podcast, but the kind nature teaches with frostbite and blood loss. In the aftermath, when the lights are dead and the internet is a ghost, what's left are consequences. Not dreams, not delusions, just biology, physics, and the decaying husk of whatever bad idea got you killed. Think of every myth we've gutted. Drinking urine, a shortcut to kidney failure, playing dead for the wrong bear, dinner bell behavior, trusting moss, rivers, animal diets, gasoline, or rabbit meat, all comforting lies passed off as survival wisdom by people who never tested them. Why do they survive? Because they're simple. You don't have to think. Just remember one thing. Rabbits have protein. Moss points north. Rivers lead to people. All wrong but fast. Fast enough to outrun fear. Not fast enough to outrun physics. It's not just ignorance. It's the psychology of collapse. When disaster hits, the human brain doesn't default to logic, it defaults to storytelling. You remember a phrase, a movie scene, a tip from that one prepper video you half-watched while scrolling. Your brain latches on like it's gospel because it needs certainty in chaos. But certainty without truth is fatal. Survival myths are mental pacifiers. They give you something to suck on while the world eats you alive. Let's talk about real preparedness, not bunker fantasies or Mad Max cosplay. Actual, boring, effective survival. Knowing how to triangulate your location with the sun and a stick. Understanding how body heat escapes and how to trap it with improvised insulation. Recognizing the signs of hyponatremia, hypoglycemia, hypothermia. Memorizing the smell of death cap mushrooms. Practicing fire starting in the rain until your fingers hate you. These are not viral moments. These are not dramatic. They are life. They are what separates you from the bloated corpse someone finds clutching a compass they never learned to use. The survivors, the real ones, aren't loud. They're not filming. They're quiet. They observe. They verify. They assume they're wrong and test until they're not. They know that biology isn't a belief system, that hydration doesn't come from your bladder, that rivers are highways for animals, not for people. That shelter means managing moisture and wind, not crawling into a damp cave with a false sense of security and a raccoon roommate. Let's take a detour into modern satire. Just for perspective, picture a group of lifestyle influencers trying to survive after the collapse. They've got battery-powered blenders, outfits coordinated by brand deals, and a collective following larger than the population of most towns. They make a fire once barely and post a photo before the phone dies forever. By day 3, they're filtering water through kale. By day 5, they're dead or dehydrated because no one taught them how to boil water without electricity. They knew how to optimize content, not calories. They could filter blue light, but not bacteria. That's the world we built. We replaced knowledge with convenience, preparation with consumption, survival with content. And the moment those systems collapse, we discover how few people can actually function without them. The world post-collapse isn't cinematic. It's not clean. It's not even dramatic. It's slow, painful, clinical. First, the power goes, then the water, then the panic, then the myths take over. One by one, people start making decisions based on confidence instead of data. They follow the river. They eat the wrong berries. They sleep in caves. They light fires with gasoline. They drink urine. They die. And the survivors? They aren't special. They're just prepared. They discarded myths before they had to. They didn't wait for chaos to start learning. They didn't assume the apocalypse would come with instructions. They ran drills. They built muscle memory. They understood that when the world breaks, there's no time to become a better version of yourself. You become what you already practiced. The truth is ugly. There are no shortcuts. There are only skills and consequences. No one survives because they were meant to. They survive because they studied when no one was watching, because they chose facts over folklore, because they questioned everything before the test began. And that's the real takeaway. Not to scare you, not to shame you, but to drag you out of the fantasy and into the facts. Because every hour you spend believing something that isn't true is an hour stolen from your ability to survive. Every myth you don't challenge becomes a liability the moment the system collapses. So challenge them now. All of them. Don't wait for the blackout to realize your compass was decorative. Don't assume fire making is instinct. Don't trust your gut unless you've fed it the right information. And for the love of all that's post-apocalyptic and practical, stop thinking survival is about looking cool in a leather jacket with a machete. It's about shelter, water, fire, food, and staying alive long enough to see morning. It's about carrying a compass instead of trusting moss, a water filter instead of a Gatorade bottle full of urine, a fire starter instead of a theory. It's about learning while you still can, because once it hits the fan, you're out of tutorials and into the exam. And no, there are no makeup tests, only consequences. So be the one who prepares when everyone else is procrastinating. Be the one who tests gear, reads manuals, and asks, what happens if? Be the one who survives, not because they were lucky, but because they were right. Be the one who knows, not the one who hoped moss was enough. Not the one who drank urine because desperation felt smart. Not the one who followed gasoline fumes into third-degree stupidity. Not the one who tried to outsmart physics with an ice cube and wishful thinking. Not the one who died surrounded by rabbits and starvation. Be the one who saw the myths coming and dodged every one of them.